and Economic Development Committee meeting for Monday, May 8th. Roll call.
Mark Eastman,
Here.
Steve Bishop,
Here.
Jim Morrison, Jim Boothby,
Here.
Ron Russell,
Here.
Larry Wall,
Here.
John Paul Lalonde,
Here.
Joe DeVonzo,
Yep.
and Dick Peterson.
Here.
All right, item number 2, approve minutes from the April 2023 meeting. Anybody get a chance to look at those or have anything to add or comments?
Make a motion, we accept. Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion passes. Item 3, downtown district Item 3, recommendations. I had made a request from Rich that we invite somebody from Maine Maritime, preferably the head of the professional development, to this committee, because it seems like we ought to have them in this room. Any thoughts? What do you think, Rich?
The only thing I had is that the number we can have, if it's in what the ordinance says, we just don't happen to have enough microphones. Currently, this works because Councilor Morrison isn't here, but normally someone would have to sit here, and then I could work there, so until the wireless mics are dropped. But I mean, we can deal with it.
I mean, it may take a while. I mean, they don't have a full-time director yet, do they?
No.
I mean, we could wait till they name a full-time, then.
We can do that.
Any other comments?
Have you reached out and had any conversation with them yet?
I know who the director is, but the interim is, but I don't know. He's also a professor there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what's going on, why it's taking as long to get a director this time.
But any conversation happened with the president?
I have not met, I haven't even met the new president.
I
I have too.
I think where they're headed here, I think it's a good gap to bridge for them to be involved with some of the things here if they're going to be growing and
In our Main
part
Street,
of town.
you know, this is going to hopefully be a benefit to Main Street, so, in the economic community here.
Yeah, have somebody down there in the loop with hopefully the growth that'll take place between the two. That could be good.
I think it's a great idea. I don't think that technology ought to be the hurdle we need to get over. Invite someone, so when the right person's available.
No, I agree, and I think we'll
Yeah.
get this mic thing sorted out, but I'd rather have them in the room than not.
Right.
Yeah.
So-
That's a school for recertification, I believe, correct?
The one in Bucksport is, yep.
Yeah, so that may be at certain times of the year where they may have more people, as opposed to depending on what they want to have within their course, maybe during the winters, it may not be as feasible if they're gonna do outside things. I'm just wondering why you said there's nothing going on, that maybe that could be a reason why.
No, with the search for a new director.
They just have a
They're having classes. They have the new fire suppression building there, so they're running trainings. But I don't think they've had a normal years since COVID. They had the grand opening the Friday before the governor closed the state down. And then it was slow building, getting people to the site. And then the director left for a job in Southern Maine, and they've been trying to hire a new director, and there's a professor who's the interim director at this point.
But my point was when they hire when they hire somebody for the full-time position is to try to get them to.
Yeah, as opposed to somebody going in and out, interim and then
Yeah, just wait
starting
till
all over again.
they settle on
Yeah, I
something.
was just wondering that maybe that was one of the reasons. No, I agree with that.
Hopefully they're active and interested. And,
Yeah, hopefully whoever
Yeah.
lands in that job.
Yeah.
What do you think? Should we wait for?
You can make a recommendation that we invite a member from Maine Maritime Academy to join the committee once they've hired a permanent director, and then that way it's done, and once they hire him, I can do the meet and greet, invite in.
Do we have openings?
We
Yeah,
can have up
there's
to 11.
openings. I haven't purposely
Right.
filled them because there's not
Just
enough
one.
seats, and if I need to go back and record minutes, I can't hear people. So when the committee members sit here, I direct them up there, because you can't pick up the volume of the people. We are gonna have drop-down mics, we're just waiting for the technology to get here.
So I think you maybe could just speak with Jerry down there, the new president. And, he may have more of his own economic development director that it may not be that they would want to fill it with this position. So I would reach out to him sooner rather than later.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, why don't we leave it with that, and can we leave it where Rich will get back to us with what he finds out? And
I think so, yeah.
we'll pick it up next meeting, see where it all lands.
Does that work for you, Rich? Okay. Second item under 3 is request from the Community and Economic Development Committee Director to have 1990s mural reinstalled on the Camden National Bank wall on the river side of the wall.
So I was contacted by the personnel at RSU 25 that they found some particle board that had some painting on it, and what we wanted to do with it, was in the 5-bay garage on Miles Lane. So I contacted Larry because I had a feeling I knew what it was, and sure enough, it was the mural that used to be on the back of what's now the Camden National Bank wall, which was the Key Bank wall back in the 90s. This is an example of one of the murals that was there. This was done by Allison Gapp, but that was her painter's name. I can't remember her.
Sharon.
Is it Sharon? Sharon Gapp is who that was. So the Camden National Wall, if you haven't seen it recently, it's not looking very good. There were 9 others. They don't all look like this, but it's got something to do with Bucksport, whether it's the Penobscot River, houses. It's got some have the fort, some are just boats in the river. So I'm looking for a recommendation, one way or another, that the committee would like to have this forwarded to the council, and then we can get, if it's the committee's pleasure, we could have this up next Monday.
I would make that recommendation.
Are they all in good shape?
They're somewhat faded, but other than that, they're in good shape.
Were they built for outdoors?
Mm-hmm.
They were on that wall, I guess, for some time. It may have been around the bicentennial. But this one here, for some reason, was dated 1995. And the others, I think, were somewhere 92. So it looks like they were done at different times.
And Camden has no problem, they want to put them
I've already got authorization from Camden to put them up, but it would need here and then the council approval.
So we've got a motion from Steve to recommend to the council that we reinstall those back on the Camden walls. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Item 4, discussion items. Main Street discussion regarding a future ordinance incentive about retail, dining versus service assembly uses for buildings located on Main Street.
And that should be on the Main Street level, frontward facing. So, the ordinance currently reads, only prohibits, residential on Main Street levels on this side of the road from Napa all the way to Gold Star Cleaners. And on the other side of Main Street, that runs true from Federal to Mechanic. So if I own a building in any of those areas on Main Street, the Main Street level, at least 51%, the forward-facing Main Street level has to be retail, commercial, dining. What this is there's been discussion, and I believe it's coming up at a subcommittee meeting of the council here this Thursday, to look at not only having it non-residential, but also including services or assembly use as well, or at least look at the ordinance.
Any thoughts from the committee?
51% dining? Did I hear that correctly?
51% of your Main Street level floor has to be commercial.
Commercial, got that.
Correct. Whatever.
Inclusive of dining,
Inclusive of
retail.
Yeah.
So it could be a law office, it could be anything.
Well, no, what we're saying is that it's being brought up to
Well,
eliminate
But I'm hearing
services.
that's where you're going.
I'm sorry?
Is that where you're going on the Main Street? Because you said assembly and stuff, so I'm thinking the Bridge Church down here.
That would be an assembly use. The Chamber of Commerce was an assembly use, the Historical Society, things that are not in retail or of dining nature.
So how about the health center?
I don't even know what that classifies as. Is that service as well? Probably would be, wouldn't it, if an attorney is?
That services is,
I guess that would be a service. The town office would be a services building.
How are you gonna treat the Alamo?
Well, they got food.
My part of this was to think about incentivizing instead of creating an ordinance, because I
Right.
just don't know how an ordinance would fly. So when you look at, buildings on Main Street, if you're trying to follow the Main Street approach, typically your retail will be on your Main Street level. Your services / residential would be in an upstairs setting, not on the Main Street level. When I went to look for different incentives, what I'm actually finding is quite different. They're trying to take, because since COVID and work from home has been a major factor, they're actually trying to turn main streets in the big cities, Chicago, New York, San Antonio, and others that I saw, and trying to change it all to residential in their downtowns. So, work from home, the pandemic, this has all had different changes. Your smaller communities, depend on their main streets, for a sense of community, and a place, and a sense of place. So that's why this came up.
So the question before this committee, you're looking for feedback about offering an incentive, incentivizing people to bring in a commercial space, i.e. retail sales, restaurant.
Well, I think what he's looking at is, there's two ways to go about it, either through an ordinance or through incentivizing, and we're trying to determine a way that is more palatable.
Because when you think about it, if you're a Main Street business owner, you're gonna take who's gonna pay you rent, and who's more than likely to pay you rent is gonna be your services. And we'll use Hammerlock Properties, for instance, that's where Bill Tomasco's office is. There were 2 businesses in there that struggled, and now there are businesses in there that are, they're paying Tom on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
So as a building owner, I understand exactly where the building owners are coming from, and that's why I struggle with an ordinance and would like to see maybe an incentive, so that if, for example, XYZ retail company moves out of downtown Bucksport, that Joe Smith doesn't come in and say, okay, that's it, they moved out, I'm not dealing with retail anymore, I just wanna put a barber shop in there, just throw something out there. I wanna put a barber shop in there, and that's it, cause they'll pay and they'll be there.
Well, on the incentive side, not to cut you off, Rich, sorry. On the incentive side, we gotta be a little careful for businesses that are already there.
Well, everything would be anything would be grandfathered.
No, I understand that, but what are we talking about? Are we talking, tax, a TIF, what are we talking here for incentive?
That's the part that I'm still working on. What I can see that people are doing, in the big cities, it's different, it's comparing apples to oranges, so I gotta continue to do more research. I'm just afraid an ordinance is going to make this less business friendly. Typically, if you have a services industry, those people are dining and shopping in your downtown because they're already there. They're gonna I watch them, they walk the waterfront now. All of us here, some people bring their lunch, but a lot of us go out to eat here in town, so it's a slippery slope.
So, shouldn't you figure out what incentives you wanna offer before we kinda go down this path?
This is a discussion,
And we're having a discussion.
right, but what I'm saying,
But-
yes.
But my man doesn't have the information that I would be looking for, I think, in the discussion.
Well, that's what
I think
you're
he's
supposed to
looking
do.
for-
No, that's where you, Steve.
Okay.
You've been here longer than I
I
have.
think he's looking for all of us for ideas.
I think-
Correct, because this is a committee, and instead of one person making a recommendation, I wanted to leave this to open discussion. I can continue to find incentives or come up with creative. I thought I saw when I told Councilor Eastman that I went through every Main Street community in Maine, the 10 Main Street Maine communities, and the 14 Main Street affiliate communities, and none of them do anything like that at all.
Incentive,
There's no incentive.
okay. Is there any successful rebuild of downtown size that you've come across?
I think Biddeford, which is the youngest downtown in the state, at least that's how they
The
proclaim themselves.
population's over 30,000
Yeah,
now.
but Bedford,
But when you're looking at sizes of this town,
Yeah, I'm trying to find something that we can equate to, because we have.
Dexter has a Rennie's on their Main Street.
There you go.
Mhm.
All right, I say we bring one here. I don't know where we'd put them.
I like the general direction your head's headed in, Rich, I like that. Yeah, I don't know how to fine tune it, cause it's.
I think
it's
an
a new
incentive
concept.
might be something like, you know, you gave, if a retail business or a restaurant came, if the council wanted to incentivize, you know, a 3-month waiver, you know, supportive rent.
Oh,
might
I'm
be
not
like-
being clear. This is to the business owner, the building owner, excuse me, not the business. This is for the building owner to not run out and get
The first thing.
the first thing.
Okay. I'm just a little confused, because the businesses that are already there would not be affected by this.
Correct.
Because you mentioned a barber, we didn't want a barber shop come in, meanwhile you have hairdressers, and there's 4 of them down there.
That's why I use barber shop,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, oh, you don't wanna use ladies, huh?
Yes, so this is not to,
So,
I mean, let's say Rose's was gonna close tomorrow.
yeah,
Do we think it's in the best interest of a main street, of a commercial district, to have a church go in there, or do we think it's
that's,
best to have?
well, that's the point, I mean, I realize that's what we're trying to avoid saying here.
I mean,
well, no,
that's-
it's not just not that.
Any
Heart and
kind of
Soul- Heart and
use,
Soul was in there before.
Or any kind of
And is
use.
that the best use of a building, to have Heart and Soul, Chamber of Commerce, the town of Bucksport, the Historical Society, the 3 churches that were on Main Street? That was basically our Main Street, was all these services, non-profit. I'm not saying it's wrong or right, I'm asking, because it's been asked of me, it's coming to a committee meeting of what does the Community and Economic Development Committee think?
So if you have an ordinance, if I'm correct,
Mhm.
and it prevents, then you have a problem with, if nobody wants to move into a store at this point, what does the retail or the store owner do?
The property owner.
Have an empty store.
Correct.
You can incentivize them, but still need somebody to move in. So
That's
that's a
correct.
problem, which we, either way, there's no easy out. With the ordinance, I don't know, there's always that sticky situation where a church could say, well, you had me down below, and now I'm up above. But there is one, I still think, down where the barber shop is, where Frank says, yeah, next door, doesn't they still use part of that?
That's out of the downtown district,
That's out of the downtown, because it's on the other side of the street.
because it's beyond Mechanic Street.
Okay, good. So, I don't know, so, yeah,
It's tough, we have limited square footage on Main Street.
I understand that. No, I'm not
I'm
arguing, I'm
not
looking at the
arguing with
whole,
them, just saying.
the whole situation, that's all I'm saying. You mentioned, the Historical Society, okay. I don't know.
The way I look at it is that we are an economic development committee. So our focus needs to be what is best economically for the downtown district. Rich brings up a good point that we could be harming business owners by an ordinance based on what currently has happened with businesses down. Now, that doesn't mean that's we like what's happening, and we're not, you know, it's up for, there's no verdict on whether services versus retail is better for our situation in downtown, but for the business owners, so who would want to buy a building if you're limiting what you can rent it to?
But, I mean, I would,
So,
isn't that the case in other communities with ordinances, that they're regulated in the same manner?
They're probably thriving more though.
Yeah, there's more of it, I mean, that's,
So it's, the problem here is that lots of businesses come and aren't viable.
Larry, I think you have a perspective that none of us have. What do you think?
Honestly, I don't think either one of them is gonna work.
Yeah, it could be something where we say we don't want to do anything, but it's been brought up, it was forwarded to Sue, and I found that it's gonna be on the next committee meeting, so I thought this committee may wanna weigh in on it.
I would rather encourage than say, no, you can't do that. Because when it comes time in the business side of things, people making decisions to move in someplace or not. Any place where there's restriction or a negative vibe of this isn't gonna work, they won't let you do that.
But
Just kinda, as far as an ordinance goes, that carries a lot of weight, that just spreads.
Well, I mean, this originally came up, what was it, 13 or 14? When we were talking about, when some property owners wanted to be able to put residential on the first floor.
Right,
Now, if you're gonna buy a building, would you want residential next door? If you're gonna buy a commercial building, I don't think I would necessarily,
yeah,
And we decided that wasn't appropriate
right,
back then, but
Yeah.
that's as far as it went.
right.
So, Rich, the way I understood what you said was that you researched all the downtown Main Street programs in the state. No one had an incentive program. Do you know what ordinances they have?
I don't, some of the ones who are affiliates like Bucksport have, only shoreland zoning for ordinances. They don't have to follow MUBEC because they're less than 5,000. Then you have, less than 4,000. And then you have those communities that are so much bigger than 4,000 that, I mean, you've got Ellsworth, you've got Dover Foxcroft, you've got Monson, Madawaska, that are affiliates. Augusta does a pretty good job with theirs. They're a main downtown. They're a step higher than Bucksport. They're not an affiliate. They're the only ones whose website of all of them, including ours, Main Street Bucksport, that had different programs that they do offer on theirs. So a lot of what we have and a lot of what all the other communities have is, this is what businesses are here, this is the events that we have going on, and then the four-step approach to being a Main Street community, but not really any meats and bones. So you literally have to go in and understand in the big communities what their ordinances look like. And those were a lot bigger than Bucksport. Those were Augusta, Skowhegan, Saco, Idaford,
Ellsworth's probably the only one
Port-
reasonably close.
Which one?
Ellsworth.
But they're an affiliate, yeah, which would be close, yeah, Ellsworth would be the closest. Skowhegan had a mill, we had a mill, Rumford is another one, but a lot of those, like I said, redirect back to their website. One of the communities, goes back to a Facebook page, not even a website. So I was all over the place researching all of them, but literally to try to understand everybody's ordinances, and then there's some with no ordinances, Callis, they
Right.
use, shoreline zoning only, because everyone's required to have shoreline zoning ordinances.
Well, without risk, there's no reward, and that's a little bit of a risk to try something that new, but, that would be, if you weren't to do the ordinance and were to do the incentive, that would be, I think that'd be pretty neat.
I will tell you that, and this is several years ago now, that, where Caleb's, memorabilia is right now, I held out for 3 years, because I was bound and determined I was gonna get retailing. But after 3 years, I just had to cave,
Yeah.
and I think it was the driver's escrow that went in next.
Well, that's why I was gonna say, unless there's demand, for example, one of the things we were hoping is Maine Maritime coming in, being full, all right, Whole Ocean's coming in, and creating this demand that the restaurants and anyone else downtown would need. I think it's more about demand than it is about incentives at this point. I'm just thinking ahead here, we need to create demand.
But at the same time, we're seeing more and more of our buildings going to services or gatherings.
Yes, and you're going to
So-
until there's a change in demand. You have to have a change in demand.
Yeah, certainly do. 'Cause we-
But if Bucksport offers
Yes,
an incentive
and what are we going to do?
in any form of, we don't know yet, but I'm just saying in
Like
general,
this?
in any form of development, if you are to compare Bucksport to Blue Hill, Ellsworth, Brewer, anywhere else,
Okay,
to locate your business, or if you're a property investor, that scenario, if there was something that could be more appealing to compare you to the other communities, then that's something to look at on the incentive front.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to, if incentives would work, if we could find examples, I mean, that's, everybody prefers that than, being told no. But,
It would be nice to have some type of chain store come in, a small Rennie's or whatever.
But thank you for that, Larry, that's what I was looking for, I was wondering what your experience had been with that. Yeah.
And we don't have anyone that's looking to come in.
Not of that size, there's no parking associated with the lots like that. When I first got here, everyone wanted a Martin's. And the first thing was, there's no sites that you have that have the parking on site. Even in downtown Camden, there, Martin's has parking
No, I understand. I mean.
on their lot. Because
Yes.
trust me, there's a lot of parking in Bucksport.
Right, well, again, where the church went in
Mhm.
down there was plenty of parking. I mean, if somebody wanted to redevelop that area, that'd be before the church went in. So,
What
Which
church
church?
are you referring
the
to?
one all the way down at the end
Methodist
Oh,
Church.
okay,
Yeah.
the old fitness center.
Right, if
Yeah.
something had gone there was all kinds of parking in the back there that I think they could have done something.
That was zone industrial.
And, hey, we can change zones. I'm on that planning board. I know we can change, okay? So anyway, all I'm saying is, we have to have demand to make changes. I don't know, like Larry said, 3 years. What kind of incentive are we gonna give Larry for 3 years that he's gonna hold on?
I mean, that's a valid point, Dick, but at the same time, if we have those spaces occupied by things that don't move us in the right direction, do we get to the point of demand? I don't know.
Neither do I. I just think the
I
demand has to be
I
there.
really think that what we're really trying to talk about without focusing on it is what we want downtown to look like in 10 years. And Camden that doesn't really need to offer an incentive because they have so much business going in there. Everybody, the business would want to go there. We don't have that type of, which is population, we don't have that type of demand yet. Put an ordinance in, and I'm not saying we shouldn't, I'm just saying it may, since it's discussion, it may actually put a halt on things. And what happens if the Northern Lights Center, Health Center wanted to expand? Would we allow them? Then if we did, then we're saying we're allowing them to expand services, not a business aspect. And how do since we're talking about it, a church would say, hey, now you allow them as a service, but you wouldn't allow us.
Well,
That
I mean,
open
Northern
up-
Light would be grandfathered, I mean, it would be different that way, but
But but I'm talking about an expansion, that's something different. It's not, you're not asking them to get out now, but, oh, man.
I'm all for whatever we can do. And Larry's got the history,
yeah.
so I'll go with whatever Larry suggests.
I think that you need to investigate this incentive. What would they be?
And, Rich, maybe we can even table the discussion this week until we can have the other side of it, develop the other side of it a little more. Because if we're gonna have that discussion, it would make sense to have an alternative. Okay.
Why don't we just go on record as saying the Economic Development Committee supports the idea of further investigating incentives or ordinances for Main Street to encourage more retail and
That seems reasonable. Because maybe we find some more stuff out, maybe through Ann Ball or somebody.
Was that a motion? I mean, I'm not sure.
I don't know if we need them.
No, this was just discussion.
Oh, you sure now? I
Yep.
mean, that sounded almost like a motion.
All right, we'll move on. Unless anybody has any more to add, we'll move on from that. Item B would be update from Rich regarding EV funding via the Zoom meeting between MDOT and Efficiency Maine.
Bucksport did not qualify. There were a couple of different factors on there, and we don't meet either one of them. Population-wise, for one, and two, we're not on Route 1 or Route 3 in the downtown area. So when they went through the list of the communities that did qualify, Bucksport was left off.
So in other words, that right is killed us again.
What does MDOT think? Do they think the business is gonna pick up this gap between, of EV charging?
They've got funding for them to do it. Well, for those areas to do it. I mean, they're also looking at rural areas, like up in northern Maine as well, up in the county. So they've really spaced it out, and I was so deflated when it came through this, because didn't matter what I threw a dart at, we weren't gonna qualify. So, but I sat there for the hour and listened.
Item C, invitation for the committee to attend the second PPI public meeting being held on Tuesday, May 30th, 2023 at 6 PM in the town council chambers.
Right here, Tuesday, the 30th. We had the first public meeting, open house, a few months ago, so there's a draft report out, and the draft report, they're coming in tomorrow, they being T.Y. Lin. They're gonna walk with Caitlin. They're gonna meet with certain businesses that are gonna be most impacted by the potential changes to Main Street. Some of the changes eliminate all of the diagonal parking. It all goes to parallel parking. It eliminates parking in spots where there currently is. The crosswalks in downtown are diagonal, and those will now be going straight, it's proposed to go straight on. There are two crosswalks proposed to be relocated due to site issues. There's one proposed to go down the other end of the walkway, down by House of Pizza and Tozer's, because there's not one down that way.
Overhead power?
Getting power underground. It's not the entire length of Main Street, but the core. And the project itself, if everything were to go through, in its current iteration, would be over $12 million.
So less parking downtown.
Less parking on Main Street.
I heard less parking. is what I
Safer
heard.
parking. Dick,
Oh,
safer.
no, I park there all the time, I have no problem. I'm just saying, parallel parking is,
The flip side of that is greatly enhanced pedestrian traffic,
greatly enhanced.
greatly enhanced.
So the sidewalks are gonna be wider.
Trees, probably.
Sidewalks on both sides streets.
I like that.
And that will slow down traffic too, if it's narrower,
Yep.
that's gonna,
We hope.
that's the belief.
The roads are proposed to be 11 feet on either side of the double yellow line. So I know that's going, but Caitlin's bringing that to their attention, that we do have tractor trailer trucks that do come through downtown, and those are larger or at 11 feet wide. So-
They're 11 feet.
So it would have to be
Slightly
bigger
bigger.
that way, so. But there are areas where parking is lost. But it's, in the end of the day, it forces us to use the parking lots that we have and make those more user-friendly. Adding a sidewalk on Lower Central Street to get to the Elm Street parking lot.
It won't go all the way up to Franklin?
It does go up to Franklin, Central to Franklin.
No, I mean sidewalk.
The sidewalk,
That's what he's saying.
does
The proposals to go all the way to
Right,
Franklin.
lower, but
But not
to me,
from
I'm
Franklin
going
to
up there
Broadway.
and I'm taking a left in front of your building or something to get the.
No,
parking
the
lot.
proposals go all the way to Franklin Street.
Okay, all the way to Franklin.
yeah.
Thank you.
Rich, when will that draft be available to the public to view? Will it be before the meeting?
I would hope so. I know Caitlin was bringing to their attention some of the changes that need to be made. There were some errors in there. There were some errors that were noticed. The big one was the 11-foot travel lanes. but also places that look like crosswalks, but not necessarily crosswalks. It wasn't clear. So, like entryways to this driveway was a slightly shaded blue, with grid lines. But when you look at, another entryway a little further down the road, that's not there. So we're trying to get a better handle and understanding of, make sure everything was complete and done to what they're saying, and having them just look at the certain things that we took a second look as, department heads to see everything there. So I believe it'll be available once those revisions have been made, or if they don't need to be made, once that's available. I can check with Caitlin. Tom will be here tomorrow. And I know they're gonna wanna talk with you. You should have received an email from Caitlin.
I'm meeting with them at 10 o'clock.
You're 10 o'clock, okay. So those greatly impacted our Napa, House of Pizza, Tozer's, and in some aspect, the Dairy Port. That's the lesser end of the truly impacted.
Yeah. Anything else from anyone on the PPI?
Yeah, just that, I think, you know, this, the magnitude of it is, I don't know, probably potentially the biggest investment on Main Street the town's ever had. As an economic development committee, we ought to be at that meeting.
I agree.
And we ought to be inviting people. We ought to fill this place up, and someone will be sorry that we didn't have it in a bigger place.
I was at the last one, and it was a good meeting.
Yeah.
They, you know, they thought there was a sidewalk already from Main Street up to Franklin and Central, which
There is not.
there is not, you know. So, Rich, are you walking with them too?
No.
Just Caitlin.
Just Caitlin. This was Caitlin's project.
Okay, I was just trying to figure out.
Where can
Can anybody walk with them?
Lucer's sidewalk.
They're meeting with business owners.
I'm
This
okay with
isn't a public.
I'm okay with that. Yeah. I'd rather have the sidewalk.
So Larry can be with them the entire time?
No, they're going to Larry and talking with Larry.
No, I
They're going to
understand,
Dina
I
and talking to
understand, I
Yeah.
understand.
Does the state kick in funds for this too? Does it
Oh, yeah.
match it?
Yeah.
80% federal, 10% state, 10% town.
Okay.
That's pretty reasonable for the
Yeah.
scope.
But,
and the
but
cost.
one of the biggest,
You
one of
take
the
that,
biggest
would you, Joe?
things on there is it's going to be.
I got something to talk about.
It's got to be user,
That's my kind of business right there.
pedestrian friendly. So that means crosswalks, bikeability. So, yeah, so, and of course, part of the big part of that is going to parallel parking. And having sidewalks on Main Street, because if you notice on this side of Main Street, it basically starts here at the town office.
Yeah.
I think you'd be surprised where the numbers shake out on the net effect of parking.
Like
What
it's
is
not
the
gonna be that
number?
drastic.
Pardon me?
What's the number difference?
I'm not sure, but I know when they talked about it, I can't remember what the number is, but I was, well, that's not much.
I would love to know how many parking spaces we would lose.
I think they'll be able to tell us that.
I know you don't know that.
It
now,
does, it says
but-
it on the form, I just don't remember the number off my head. I remember $12 million just because that's a number that'll be published in the newspaper, so.
Yeah.
So the town is responsible for 10% of the 12.
1.2.
1.2.
Yeah, roughly 1.2, if it comes in at the 12 million that they're anticipating. Because remember, this is gonna take a while to get through this. This phase should be completed in August, and then from there you go for your, VPI. It moves from a PPI to a VPI.
Yeah, so this does not get us $10.8 million. It's a competitive process. But, again, that's why I think it's important that the public is involved in this to whatever extent we can get them, because the more public input we have, the better our application will look.
Because, yeah, it'd have to go to a referendum eventually, so we need public buy-in.
Yeah, but even on the grant application,
If I remember right, you can't apply unless the town's agreed to fund the 1.2.
The VPI itself?
You can't apply unless the town has already approved that they would, this isn't see if you get it, then decide. You gotta decide, then you file.
Then we're gonna have to vote on it in the fall, I would guess.
Yeah, we'll have plenty of time to have it for the November election.
But I, for one, would like to see the slanted parking go.
Me too. I agree.
Every time I back out, if there's a truck there, you cannot, it's blind, 100%.
Keeps you sharp.
So it doesn't.
I, for one, wanna see the town, the Main Street beautified.
Absolutely.
It is in this.
I mean, I've said that for years and years and years. It's all curb appeal.
Mhm.
I mean, in real estate, it's curb appeal.
Sure.
In the village, it's curb appeal.
Is there new lighting, John Paul, in it?
I didn't see lighting, I saw, trees.
No,
Lots of trees, lots of
there would be
canopies.
new lighting because the poles are gone. So
There'd
they
be
would
something.
they put lamp posts
Yeah.
in, that's what the discussion was, the
Yeah.
last meeting.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It, it wasn't, I didn't see it in the draft unless it was just in the word.
My thing was, you know, vintage light.
Exactly, yeah.
I like brick sidewalks, but
They
Well,
probably
folks
won't do
don't.
the brick, but yes, I agree. Saco has brick.
concrete with like a brick edging.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we could- something like that would be much
But-
user-friendly.
To me, this discussion goes back to our first discussion of the day about ordinance or incentive, and if, to me, that's why it's important that we show we wanna be a business-friendly downtown. And that's why we ought to continue that discussion
Once you've got that,
more, because, you know, it's gonna be very competitive, and the more things that we show up on the positive side of the ledger, better chance we have.
All right. Anyone else? Item 5, discussions of items not on the agenda for the committee and the public. Well, we don't have much public, but anything from the committee?
I just, we went off, but are we going to attend the meeting as a whole, as a body, or are we going individually?
I mean, I think we can attend individually.
This was an open invitation to the committee, as
Okay.
well as the public who's watching this meeting at
Very
home, and then for it to appear in the newspaper. Every chance I get until that meeting, I'm going to announce it.
You wanted to make that clear, okay.
Yeah, I
good.
wanna make that clear, yes.
I'm sorry, I just had to ask that question.
That's totally fine, Joe. Anyone else? Any other items?
On no agendas, I have a question. I always talk, that's just my nature. There was an article in the paper in Buckford Enterprise about the Historical Society, the building, and how it should be moved to the church, and it's just my own opinion, if you move that into that, unless I'm wrong, I think it would be decibel for that. I don't see how that could be moved there, and people still even knowing it existed. I really like the idea of us moving the Historical Society building to the other side of the gazebo, and Don had mentioned a restaurant going, blah, blah, but we do have the railroad tracks. This is my oddball idea, something just to throw out there. I guess it's Searsport has had that dining car going back, railroad dining car going, I remember it in the 80s, I'm sure it was there. Now it's Massimo's, but that was there for ages. I don't see why, if that was doing something like that, could be put there. And instead of doing, I remember we had talked about, well, I was talked of having food trucks come in. Instead of food, you could always lease that or rent, or have them use that. It could be dining seats in there and a locomotive, and instead of, we're talking about having a museum for the paper mill, well, how much more important is that than something for the town history? It should be combined in some way, and that's all I wanted to say. I just thought that I was gonna write a response to that, but I didn't know if I should since I'm on the committee.
So just for clarification, this is the editorial, not an article, is that correct? Is it the
It was
Speaks
editorial, I'm sorry.
Okay, but I just wanna
Right.
make sure I didn't miss something.
Right, no, it was his editorial, Don's editorial, and I felt that, I guess he listened when we were talking about it that night, but I just thought, so if you're listening, Don, I thought, there's other ways to get a restaurant that would still preserve the integrity of the Historical Society on the waterfront. And I think, you know, that's my opinion, that's all.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Item 6, the next meeting would be Monday.
Oh, could I just stop
Sure
real
you
quick?
can.
Sorry, yeah, I was just, Mr. Boothby, would you like to give an update from the committee about the RSU? I watched your meeting the other night. Sorry.
That's okay. And what item are you speaking?
The revolving. Yeah.
Revolving renovation?
Yes, please.
Yeah, the school qualified for 3 school revolving renovation funds, zero interest loan program from the state of Maine, which is exciting. We put in 4 applications hoping to get 1. We did a little bit better than we thought. We've qualified for $2.9 million roughly in work. That's a zero interest loan, and they will forgive 58.24% of it. So our responsibility would be $1.2 million payback over 10 years, which is a pretty good deal overall. And we'll have a public hearing tomorrow night during the board meeting on that topic. And then a referendum question will be coming to the public on June 13th when we do our budget validation referendum. We'll also have a second question asking if the public supports. Every step has been met. We have qualified bidders. We have projects that are within the budget. The board has approved that. I received a letter of affirmation today from the Maine Bond Bank. We're all set to go. So the last 2 hurdles we have is we have the public meeting tomorrow. And that's just an update, take any information and questions from the public. And then the referendum, if that's approved, then we're a go for the projects. But it's an amazing project. We've had one of these before for the high school when we did the facade project. They provided, that was a $2.4 million project. They provided $1 million worth of that, and at zero interest, and they forgave at that point in time 34%. So
What's the project?
there's 3 projects that'll be there, Ron. The first project is the exterior of the middle school. Anything that's non-masonry on the exterior has failed. The siding that was originally used was a 15-year life product. We're in year 21, and we're getting moisture penetration everywhere in that building. And we've had it engineered, and we have a solution. That's a $1.4 million project. We're requesting the voters approve $400,000 from our capital reserve fund that's sitting there, have been built up for this, and then the other $1 million to come from the revolving renovation. The second project is on the Miles Lane School. That school is
1993, I believe.
years old. Actually, it's older than that, Rich. I think it's 34, 35
That was
years.
1990, sorry.
Yeah,
2003
1990.
middle school.
And our HVAC system needs a full retrofit, rebuild, reconstruction, and get up to air quality standards. There are new ASHRAE, air standard qualities that are coming out that schools are supposed to meet within the next couple of years, and we're not gonna be close without doing complete workovers. And the same with the high school. So those are the 3 projects, and they're projects that were on our facilities maintenance plan. Getting this kind of funding to help offset the costs is a great opportunity.
Yep.
So,
I do have one question for Rick. The old bank building. The restaurant's supposed to go into the old bank building. Anything new on that? Is it gonna happen this year?
From a third party, not from the owner, because I've never heard back from them, but they are moving south, and there is, at this point, from what I understand, no plan for the building. So I wouldn't, unless something changes, I wouldn't expect it this year. I'm not sure if it's gonna go back on the market, I'm not sure if someone else is gonna run it, but they run one in Bar Harbor as well. So I question how they're running Bar Harbor if they're moving south and why. So I've got questions, but I don't have answers.
Anyone else? All right, item 6 is, like I said, Monday, June 12th at 6. Next meeting, and item 7?
Move to adjourn.
Sure. Good. A motion?
Second,
All in favor?
done.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.